Rhetta Jacobson, has studies in biology, agriculture, and education. And Walter Baumgartner is a mechanical engineer. And I know he has a deep understanding of Walter Russell's universal model, his cosmology, mechanics. And Walter and Rhetta are both working to take the principles that Russell left us and develop them into technologies that will save our planet. Join me in welcoming first Rhetta and then Walter Baumgartner.
Good afternoon. First of all, we wish to thank the University of Science and Philosophy for inviting us to speak at this conference. We have been students of Walter and Leo Russell for many years. We represent an organization called Energy Unlimited, and our work we call Vortex Mechanics. We are an engineering research team and publishers. We invite you to pick up literature on the resource table about our newsletter, Causes, where for years we have tried to educate on the detailed aspects of the Russell's cosmogony. We use our newsletter to help fund and to report on our research into what we call a new non-destructive technology. Our objective is to turn the theories of Walter and Leo Russell's cosmogony into hardware. By hardware, we mean machines and devices which can perform for us as energy slaves and provide us all the power and transportation and the wonders of our current technology and agriculture, but with one main difference. We want these energy slaves where they do not enslave us. Currently, our technological devices and our agricultural methods are enslaving us, as we have witnessed by the deteriorating condition of our planet's health and humanity's health, which cannot be separated. It is not our purpose here to go into details, facts, and figures about the environmental predicament. You've heard some excellent presentations on this already, and you are aware and concerned, or you wouldn't be at this conference. We are all concerned that our planet is losing its capacity to support life. We are destroying our basic life-supporting mediums, namely the soil, water, and atmosphere. We are not treating our planet as a living organism with needs of her own. We are disrupting the organization of the layers of the soil. We are denuding it of plant cover, not realizing this is the same as damaging a person's skin. It's a known fact that if just 1/3 of a person's skin is damaged, death results. We are extracting the internal fluids of oil and gas and burning them, not realizing that these are the lifeblood and lymph of this organism, Earth, and that they have functions within the planet's metabolism, just as our organs and fluids have within our bodies. We are then polluting the soil with tons of deadly chemicals, and we are even exploding atomic bombs within her bowels. We are creating more demand for water, and at the same time polluting our water sources and channeling water in unnatural ways, making it impossible for nature's water household to perform its natural purification process and to create more water. We are stepping up our oxygen production by burning fossil fuels and industrialization, and at the same time killing off our oxygen producers. Results are showing up as climatic and geological changes, extinctions of thousands of species, and the general accelerating decline in the new generation's health. If we put humanity's impact upon our planet into a time perspective, we will find that if all the Earth's geological time eras were compared to a scale of 1,000 days, the Cenozoic era, which is the small red era, which is the era that man has existed upon Earth, would only be 6 hours long. And yet, in roughly 180 years, or the time of our industrial age, mankind's demands have gobbled up recklessly and unopposed nearly all of the natural resources accumulated by the earth in a course of 4 billion years. From this that we can see that enterprising human demolition squads did actually manage to dismantle our planet 22 million times faster than the creative forces of the universe could put it together. Now, these are plain and simple facts that any junior high school student can verify. And the embarrassing ethical question is, why do we continue unchecked? Our junior high school students may demand an answer from us at this crucial hour. Our authorities and governments, economists, industrialists, are so taken by the national ambition and the pressure of the economic system to increase the total annual production of an industrialized country by a minimum of 5% annually, that they choose to ignore the effect of exponential growth. If, for instance, world resources of a particular metal are assessed to last 1,000 years based on present day's figures of consumption, a steady increase in a 5% annually would already exhaust the supply in 81 years. The United Nations organization FAO actually predicts that by the year 2000, the earth will have, quote, dried out, end quote, and that we will have reached the end of our available natural resources as utilized today by the end of the century. Now that leaves us with less than 11 years to look for solutions. We do not advocate doing without technological devices or our present conveniences. No one wants to give up electricity or go back to hand labor, right? We do not advocate a patch-up technology, nor a system of regulation on the destructive consequences, not just an attempt to undo or to counterbalance, if at the same time we continue the causes of the unbalance and the deterioration. But rather we propose to prove that it is possible to reverse our direction towards suicide by literally reversing our applications of motion in technology and agriculture. And I wish to repeat that because that's a new concept. Literally reversing our applications of motion in technology and agriculture. Why do we zero in on technology and agriculture? Because they have been our greatest impact upon our planet. We have allowed technology to dictate our path and our future. The trends of the future are guided and controlled by the next gadget, which will influence our lives and infiltrate our homes. And obviously these gadgets are getting out of hand. They are of a deteriorating, degenerating nature. We have become out of balance. We're taking more than we're giving. How are we doing this? By building and operating our gadgets and machines on principles that nature uses for decomposition, dissipation, and decay of matter. Therefore, education is necessary to bring the mass consciousness awareness to an awareness of a two-way universe. The Russells' work was interwoven with the sex principle of nature. They stressed the opposites of each and every condition and their balanced rhythmic interchange. Or in other words, excuse me, never mind. Or in other words, the cyclic predominance of one partner and then the other. Now socially, psychologically, and personally, the masses are becoming aware of this need for recognition and cooperation of both sides. Now we must implement these awarenesses into our physical habits, into our physical machines, into technology, so that when inventions emerge, they will be based on life-supporting principles of operation instead of life-threatening principles. Have you ever thought about what principles of operation our science and technology has as underlying laws? Our basic scientific principles are those of entropy, which teaches us that the universe is exploding, is slowly running down by the gradual waste of radiant energy. Now, this one-sided belief that the universe is running down is the assumption upon which all our mechanical practices are based. This results in our inefficient power generation, where we can never break even or have a gain. Chinese firecrackers, modern rockets, reciprocating engines, jet engines, heat engines of all kinds, all are based on entropy, and they act exactly according to the laws of thermodynamics, which man drew up. Truly, man invented machines as they are, and they will always obey man-made laws. The laws of thermodynamics and entropy deal with explosion, heat, the use of pressure, radiation, and the burning of our resources. Technologists and engineers of today use these exothermic processes. We use heat and pressure more than their opposites to change and move. We use expansion and explosion to push and force our way along in our power and propulsion. We use the radioactive decaying process of nature to capture a small amount of energy as it passes by on its journey back into space. And we are discharging our planet and the life therein by copying and enhancing these destructive processes. The exothermic processes of explosion, expansion, push, pressure, and radiation are nature's methods of decaying, destroying, degenerating her creations. If mankind could but become two-way conscious, it would be seen that nature also composes, creates, charges, builds up, generates. She does that by using the forces of contraction, pull, suction, and implosion, which is a word that means the opposite of explosion. Our message today is that we can copy the mechanics of these generative processes, the endothermic processes, in our machinery instead of the exothermic, and we can reverse our destructive impact upon our planet. Physics usually is a hated subject in school. The masses reject it at the gut level. Most people reject a deeper study into physics or engineering because they have not answered the primary first questions we wanted to know about as a child. Those that you were so eagerly looking forward to when you went to science class. Science starts off filling us with amazing phenomena, telling children the wonders and beauties of the earth and its creations. But when it comes to explaining how birds fly and how plants grow and why lightning and tornadoes have so much power, they don't explain the causes, but they merely start comparing and putting math into observed effects. Now it is time for every citizen to question why and how these things happen. Become aware of what we're doing when we push a button or when we step on the accelerator. To know from where and how that power comes to us, and ask why we are having a deteriorating result around us. We need to link what we're actually doing with what is happening in the unseen and invisible universe. It's really not that complicated. The basic causes are simple, and they can be understood by children. And parallels of the basic causes can be drawn in each area of life. To understand the causes, we must look at the background mechanics of creation. Russell's mechanics of creation are not an abstraction. All mediums, all actions, physical or psychological, all areas of life function with the same basic mechanics of operation. Certain relationships of action-reaction bring about the same results. And these relationships, these movements, are not a blackboard full of formulas. Russell explained the cycle of creation and decreation and all the phenomena of our universe with a three-dimensional space geometry. If you're familiar with Russell's writings, then you know he said, if you want to know our universe and all the phenomena within, then know just one cycle of the wave. For he pointed out to us that the wave is a cyclic, metabolizing, pulsing whole process, which consists of alternately in-breathing, a charging compression, and then an out-breathing, an expansion and a discharging. repeated eternally. This process is the basis of life and death, the construction and the dissipation of all matter and all the physical phenomena, whether in the macrocosm or the microcosm. Furthermore, Russell told us that all matter is nothing but this wave motion, long before particle physicists began their debate about whether matter is a particle or wave. Let's look briefly at the basic building blocks of the Russell cosmogony. We have here some acrylic models which will help us demonstrate the geometry of the wave. In order to look at geometry, we have to begin to think in 3 dimensions at once. You may think we do, but we're still a 2-dimensional linear society. A good example is in our directions. Our north, south, east, and west are all upon the surface of our planet. We do not consider down or up or in and out or towards our planet and away from our planet in our normal use of directions. But to think in 3 dimensions at once, we must consider them also. If you can comprehend the wave cycle as a 3-dimensional form made up of pairs of spiraling vortices, base to base and point to point, then one can see the wave. The wave represents the path from the invisible background of energy to the seen and sensed world of matter. If one can think of all particles of matter on a transition journey from a nebulous dissolved state like salt in water on its way to a condensed solidified state, then one can watch creation happen in the mind. Matter is contracted wave motion. Its motion is speeded up from a rarefied state of stillness, which occurs in a cubical form. It is compacted together to give a solidified appearance approaching a spherical shape. Russell tells us that the background of space has certain geometrical patterns of structure which cause the patterns of motion known as the wave. Cubes are the basic form in space, which result from lines of force in space. The cube is the invisible surrounding wave field, the negative space around every particle of matter. Cube walls are pressure walls which mirror and reflect. A cube is divided with the 3-dimensional planes in the middle. These are the projector planes. They begin motion in the cube. They consist of flat, 2-dimensional, spiraling, circulating energy. These planes then project that energy out of the center to give motion a 3rd dimension. Energy or light is projected upon the cube walls, and then it is reflected back from the cube walls and from the corners in a radar fashion. Excuse me, it's supposed to go in there. Anyway, this sits into the cube. This reflection is angular at first, but then it becomes more and more spiraling and circular. This path of spiraling motion becomes the vortex. And pairs of these vortex formations create the wave phenomena. Excuse me. The vortex spiral has 2 forces working within it: the centripetal and the centrifugal. The proper pronunciation of those words, if you're scientific, is centripetal and centrifugal. But for the sake of hearing, I'm going to distinctly pronounce them centripetal and centrifugal. So bear with me. One force called the centripetal force proceeds inward. If you follow the black arrow, towards a common center to create this condensation, to accumulate energy and motion into a smaller volume and to create matter. This motion is the endothermic one-half of the cycle. The other force acts 180 degrees to that and is called centrifugal. It attempts to restore the evacuated space by redistributing the accumulated energy back to where it came from. It dissipates, radiates, and expands back to equilibrium. This force causes the exothermic one-half of the cycle. The vortex is the tool which gathers mass into spherical shapes by centripetal spiral motion, first squeezing closer and closer together, and then redistributing that matter by throwing it outward in a centrifugal spiral, like water that is thrown off the edge of a wheel when it's turned at a certain speed. The vortex's centripetal compression compacts a huge volume of potential energy of the cubical wave field into tiny solid spheres. Here is the sphere or particle. This represents the compressed solid of high potential. It is packed closely together, whether it's an atom or a sun. This little yellow sphere would represent the particle of matter. Now, after the birth and maturity of this mass or sphere, it begins its decaying half of its cycle. The sphere will centrifugally unwind back into space by expanding or exploding slowly, if you will. This represents the sphere after it has reached maturity. When it begins to age, it oblates. It gives off around its equatorial belt in a flattening spiral, which, with centrifugal force, redistributing its energy and mass back into space. And this flattening spiral will then become the base of another vortex projection here, to repeat the cycle of wave formation over and over. Now that's the basic wave mechanics of creation and decreation as presented by Russell. Of course, this process can occur at different frequencies to produce light waves at 186,000 times per second, or at slower rates for all the other electromagnetic phenomena of our universe. But the mechanics of operation is always the same. It is a cyclic, pulsing, in-breathing and out-breathing process. This can represent any wave vibration. This is electricity along a wire, AC current, pulsing, breathing in and out, off and on. First concentrating, then a relax, a release, and then another charging surge. All mediums follow this same path of motion. This is water flowing along, rhythmically pulsing, concentrating, then breathing, having a second of turbulence, then charging and flowing forward again. This is our breathing in and out. This is the birth and death of suns, atoms, sound, and color, with all the same mechanics, cyclically coiling up to concentrate and solidify so we can observe an effect, and then unwinding so that effect disappears. It is the totality of nature's creation and decreation. This is why Russell said, to understand one complete wave cycle, you can understand the phenomena of creation. Now here's what science and technology are doing. They are taking only one half of this cycle and copying it, the expansion half. First, they observe the effect of creation, matter, after it has reached a concentrated enough form to notice and sense. Then they measure and assess the amount of energy that has been compacted together. They're impressed. They desire some of that energy. Then they observe that nature will continue the cycle and dissolve that energy by slowly expanding or exploding it. Then they say, let's copy that. Let's do it faster. Let's step up the expansion and explosion and use that energy. We are copying the mechanics of nature's disintegration. We take what nature has created and charged with potential and burn it, explode it, break it apart, never thinking that we could copy the mechanics of the way nature builds it up in the first place. All of our systems of today are based upon the latter half, the dying, exploding, entropic half of this cycle. We know how to analyze, take apart, decompose, destroy everything on this planet by copying nature's decomposing exothermic processes with centrifugal motion. What we need to learn is how to synthesize, create, and generate by copying nature's endothermic process, which uses centripetal motion. Russell showed us how the vortex uses the centripetal force for the creative process. Our research is based upon copying, guiding, and controlling this centripetal motion. Now here's the director of our research, Mr. Baumgartner, to tell us how the centripetal motion can be engineered and translated into non-destructive technology. Thank you.
Very good, Jacobson. What's this here? What's this here, Walter? Yeah. My thing doesn't. Oh, it works. Okay.
The slide button for forward is right there.
Forward. We can. Russell asked us to understand the wave, which is the universal machine, as he called it. It is the background mechanics of nature. This invisible universe is in total control of the visible physical universe. It is the cause of every effect, no matter how large or how small, from microcosm to macrocosm. When we can see without reservation how it permeates everything, including ourselves, then we will know that we have made a big step up the ladder of understanding. Through the cosmogony of Walter Russell, which was given to him during his enlightenment or illumination in the 1920s, we are now in a position to translate this invisible background mechanics into a technology which will be of great benefit to humanity. This knowledge has never been here before on this planet, throughout all civilizations of man. Only parts were here before, practiced and kept secret by priesthoods in different civilizations or cultures. The cosmogony of Walter Russell is the cosmogony of nature, revealing the creative processes. It is not a man-made cosmogony like the Big Bang Theory. Being an accomplished artist, he was able to convey this mechanics in three-dimensional pictures, a language which everybody can understand much better than just words. The time has come now to translate these creative processes into tangible hardware. Many books will have to be written on the subject of engineering based on this cosmogony. Therefore, the speakers in the allotted time span have chosen to focus in on only one part of this universal machine, which is the vortex. Certain parts of the universal machine show themselves more frequently than others, but the one most prominent in the physical universe is the vortex. Vortex patterns can be seen everywhere throughout liquids and gases, and it amazes the speaker that all this has not been recognized long ago. In our research, we are taking the tool of the vortex, which we call the workhorse of nature, and learning to manipulate the two forces at work within it. The vortex is the manifester from the invisible universe to the visible universe. We are learning the mechanics of the tornado, and we call our work Vortexian mechanics. The technology based upon the centripetal operation of the vortex is called implosion technology, which is the opposite of our explosion technology today. The power of the implosion process has been proven to be equal to the power of explosion. Furthermore, the great advantage is that when we enhance and help implosion along, we don't encourage death, destruction, disintegration of our mediums. Instead, we get enriched, enhanced growth, and a stepped-up potential of our mediums, a higher quality of life. One of the most amazing things about devices operating on centripetal motion is that they function with the same fuels that nature uses as fuels, namely water and air, and a minute amount of minerals for catalysts. After all, these are the building blocks that nature uses to store the tremendous energy it builds up, and nature uses one basic tool of motion, the vortex, which is the metabolizing living energy form which does all the work in our universe. Another example or amazing fact about implosion is that there is no resistance buildup like in our present explosion technology. In our explosion technology, we know that resistance increases with the square of the velocity in our machines, whereas in the implosion technology, machinery, resistance decreases with the square of the velocity, making much more energy available for our constructive use. In centrifugally oriented machinery, where expansion pressure is predominant, energy is wasted in overcoming resistance. In an expansion pressure reciprocating machine like that of our car engine, only 25% of the energy is made available for useful work, whereas the other 75% of the available energy is wasted through the exhaust and overcome the friction within the engine. In implosion technology, a machine working under the centripetal contraction principle has all the energy available to perform work. Resistance is absent. In our present water management techniques, engineers have a single-minded desire to move a certain volume of water in as straight a line as possible to a desired destination. So they apply pressure to force and push that water through straight pipes as fast as they can. But what happens is the well-known but undesired phenomena of turbulence, which interferes with the forward flow. Both the straight circular pipes and our conventional pressure pumps of today make it difficult to move and transport water because they set up a centrifugal resistance reaction. Another little known result that happens with these pressure systems is that the quality and life of the water itself is destroyed. The method of moving mass or medium in a straight line under pressure sets up a molecular disintegration as an uncontrollable side effect of the medium. It is a known fact that when healthy, fresh mountain spring water containing no harmful bacteria is pumped under pressure through conventional pumps and pipes for 24 hours, that it loses its electrical potential and becomes a breeding ground for microorganisms. The bacteria count reaches dangerous level within 24 hours, calling for the present poisonous practice of treating all our water with chlorine and various other toxic chemicals to sterilize it. This is just one example of how explosion pressure technology is destroying our life-supporting mediums. The method of moving mass or medium in a straight line under pressure sets up a molecular disintegration as an uncontrollable side effect of the medium. It is a known fact that when healthy, fresh mountain spring water containing no harmful bacteria is pumped under pressure through conventional pumps and pipes for 24 hours, that it loses its electrical potential and becomes a breeding ground for microorganisms. The bacteria count reaches dangerous level within 24 hours, calling for the present poisonous practice of treating all our water with chlorine and various other toxic chemicals to sterilize it. This is just one example of how explosion pressure technology is destroying our life-supporting mediums. We mentioned the medium of water because it is the first basic living medium we need, and because our cities and countries are presently experiencing severe crisis. Nature not only has pressure and push behind its action, it works on the other end to pull and invite its action with a suction and a vacuum, devoid of resistance. And it has been proven that the centripetal endothermic invitation is much more powerful than brute force. Let's look at how implosion technology can solve many of the problems of present technology. We will take a preview of some of the prototype devices emerging from the new implosion research, and we will make some comparison to the existing explosion technological devices. The key component of implosion devices are specially designed pipes called twister pipes. For a moment, we have to introduce the concept of the twister pipe, which imitates vortex flow. The natural spiral vortexy movement can be witnessed in every creek, river, or air current, like tornadoes and hurricanes. A medium like water flowing in a twister pipe experiences a rhythmic, balanced interchange, a so-called oscillation, which is the outcome of interchange between two forces, namely the centripetal and the centrifugal action. These pipes allow for the performance of the two-way piston stroke of the universe, by which energy and material form comes into existence. Twister pipes, in short, imitate the forces occurring in a vortex. The design of the pipes is so arranged that the medium travels towards the inside in a coiling motion, pulling away from the walls. The path of the medium appears as a threaded rod or screw in a tornado fashion. This unusual design does away with resistance, friction, and molecular disintegration of the medium, and the usual incrustation and deterioration of the pipes. Instead, these pipes increase the throughput phenomenally and perform with suction instead of pressure to move the mediums. There are two types of twister pipes. These cylindrical pipes up on top there are designed for the transport or conduction of mediums to ensure no centrifugal disintegration, no loss, no friction, no attenuation of the medium. So we can deliver to a distance what we started off with and not lose along the way. They can be adapted to conduct the mediums of water, air, and sound if necessary. The second type of twister pipes below are the tapered conical pipes. The tapered pipes concentrate, multiply, and amplify the medium's potential. These pipes are assembled into systems and devices for turbines and motors to give mechanical power and propulsion systems. Here's one example called the implosion motor, which can eventually replace the internal combustion engine. Let's compare their operation. Internal combustion engines explode fuel and use the outward pressure and heat to push and force action against its opposing pressure. Thus, the fuel can be used over and over. During the change of potential, work is performed by the fuel. This is the way nature does it. All implosion devices are designed to utilize as fuels, water and air, and a small amount of catalytic trace minerals, and their byproducts are only water and air. Also, they give off no harmful byproducts residues or pollutants. Our basic motto in our research is to look at nature and copy, not invention, but duplicate of natural processes. A good example of the natural engineering is our prototype device called the propellerless fish motor. This device can replace the cavitating, sluggish, and destructive chopping and flailing of the present boat, ship, and submarine propeller with a silent, non-fuel, consuming, and non-polluting means of transportation. The fish motor is copied from after the propulsion of the trout. Trout stand almost motionless in very fast running water with their mouth open for hours at a time. This causes two functions. They generate a vacuum in the form of a vortex in front of them, into which they are pulled, and at the same time they take in food. While the fish takes in water, the water flows through the gills. The gills are constructed in layers, which compress and catalyze the water and push it out backwards along the conically shaped body of the fish. This compressed and catalyzed water, the gills catalyze the water, does not mix with the surrounding water immediately, but stays on the body, forming little swirls along the scales of the skin. This can be considered a boundary layer, which not only decreases resistance between the fish's body and the outside water, but also wedges the whole body forward against the main flow. Trout can move at lightning speed up the creek, as you may have seen them. Contrary to the common belief, the fish propels themselves by moving their tails sideways to and fro. We now have a discovery directly from nature which we can imitate. And we can build a machine which will transport us just as fast and with a minimum of energy input, just like the fish does. The secret of the trout propulsion system lies in using the vortexian tendencies of water movement, which so far are unknown. We shall describe this fish motor applicable to water. The fish motor uses anterior suction to remove resistance in front of the device, and at the same time uses a vortexian spiral to wedge and propel the body into the anterior vacuum. This is the same mechanical process for creating, controlling, and utilizing vortices that the trout and other fish use to dart effortlessly upstream and even climb 60 feet of waterfalls. Water is admitted through a vortex funnel in the front into a turbine wheel, where it is compressed through the twister pipes we have mentioned before. Then the water is released around the afterbody or hull of the vehicle, again in a vortex fashion. There are guiding grooves at the front inlet, and with the turbine wheel turning, a strong pulling vortex comes into existence. The turbine consists of a set of conically shaped twister pipes, which can be related to the gills of the fish. The velocity of the water reaches approximately 2 times the speed of sound by the time it exits at the nozzles of the pipes. The whole body of the vehicle is shaped like an egg, which is another key shape in implosion technology, by the way. The pointed end is towards the back. The drawing shows how water flows off an egg when placed under a faucet of running water. It forms a vortex around and pushes the eggs upward against the main flow, as shown here on the left-hand side. When we apply the pushing principle in addition to our pulling suction principle occurring in the front of the vehicle, we have, like the trout, the two-way principle of nature working for us in the same direction. This practice of regulating vortexing currents is, of course, not only restricted to the medium of water, but also applicable to air. All gaseous mediums move in spirals and vortices. Everyone has observed the spirals of smoke or steam from a hot cup of coffee rising and expanding spirals. The creatures of the air are subject to the laws of movement of their medium. In the movement of flight, vortices are formed which hold the bodies of birds and insects. Different insects and birds beat their wings differently, and of course in different frequencies to form their vortices for their particular needs. The butterflies and hummingbirds beat wings vertically. They create vertical vortices to hold them in flight. Each sweep pushes the air down and them up. The butterfly and hummingbird are exceptional. Most insects, like the housefly and bee and most birds, beat their wings horizontally. Their vortices are on the top of their backs in a horizontal axis. The vortices are shed at the beginning and end of each stroke. It is a sudden change in direction which sucks air in and forces air down. Air turbulence is the same as that of water, except for the difference in density. With some modification in the vehicle's design and the size of the twister pipes, this same principle can be applied to aircraft, or rather to levitating discs, which have been successfully experimented with in the past. The awesome power of the tornado or hurricane comes from their centripetal vortexing action gathered together potential around a common shaft. Today, the same dynamic effects of a tornado can be known practically and in tangible, harnessable machinery. With the use of the twister pipes, a self-contained recycling device using the medium of air has produced expulsion force with a speed 4 times the speed of sound. These configurations of pipes and special nozzles has been experimentally applied to aircraft in the 1940s to successfully fly unmanned craft. A reactor of this type can supply sufficient power to revolutionize our current means of transportation and flight and free us from our suicidal dependence upon fossil and nuclear fuels. When a turbine wheel of the implosion type is set in motion, a vacuum is created within the wheel which draws in the air masses from the front, implodes them, and transforms their bipolar inner values into a levitating force. This is not just thrust coming from the nozzles. In such a case, a mass endowed with a carrying capacity of a levitating nature, weighing 1 kilogram, is able to carry a payload of 1,000 kilograms, 1 against 1,000, into space. Although these future implosion devices for transportation and propulsion are the most exciting and promise some of the greatest changes coming up for technology, there are many other devices emerging now from implosion technology with principles of operation based on the constructive centripetal action of the vortex. For instance, arrangement of the twister pipes have been used for chemical synthesis processes, emulsion and coupling. We have the beginning to create our fuels to solve the problems of deforestation, the digging, drilling, and disturbance of our present mining techniques. Atomic transmutation of the elements will allow us to create fuels and the elements of matter in the same manner as nature, using the constructive processes of various arrangements of these pipes. Just one example on how it can be arranged. There's many other arrangements possible with electromagnetism or electricity. light and sound and so on. But all has to move in a vortex motion. Probably one of the most useful applications of vortex in twister pipes will be in the future need to purify, because we need to purify our planet and the water and the air upon it, and also to desalinate the water. For example, to provide fresh water for consumption in agriculture. Desalination is an application for the twister pipes, truly. Agriculture is an area which will see benefits of implosion technology. Farmers have been racing against the rapid evolution of crop pests and the rapid disintegration of soil and water fertility because of the chemical farming methods presently employed. We can break the artificial fertilizer and pesticides habit with certain implosion devices and methods which subject our water and soil to the benefit of vortexin action. Time does not permit us to go into our vortexin agricultural program here, but we have a booklet on this program if you're interested. It is very important here that we make it understood that the new implosion technology based on Walter Russell's cosmogony does not necessarily represent a threat to financial and governmental concerns. There is an emerging faction of concerned, socially and environmentally responsible leaders in these areas. Leaders who see on a broader scope and can break old habits. Many organizations and investors have been able to survive bankruptcy, and with clever systems and schemes come up with new capital for new venture. But none of us, the homeless gutter sleeper or the penthouse executive, will survive the biological bankruptcy of our planet is facing. We must replace our present destructive technology with a biotechnology which supports life if we are to protect future generations from a terrible future. We encourage inquiries for transition strategies to make this reversal possible. We are available for consulting to any individual or organization who wishes to integrate the non-destructive technology into our present technology or agricultural systems. We encourage inquiries for transition strategies to make this reversal possible. We are available for consulting to any individual or organization who wishes to integrate the non-destructive technology into our present technology or agricultural systems. Vortexin action has been applied to pollution control devices for the separation of sulfur dioxide from exhaust gases, for an example. The application of such devices could greatly reduce acid rain, which is such a pollution problem. These devices can purify the exhausts on motor vehicles and heating installations currently in operation, until we can change over to an implosion technology, which would use the natural fuels of water and air. Successful experimental work has been done in waste management and separation, water management, and revitalization also. Our research is learning to identify, isolate, and imitate the characteristics and behavior of the centripetal side of the vortex. We are incorporating the creative half of nature's two-way cycle into machinery and systems to turn out destructive technological and agricultural processes around 180 degrees. And as it says on the chart here, we are moving things the wrong way. All we need to do is to reverse our direction. Thank you.